about to hear a revolution in talk radio, Liberty Talk Radio, where the critical thinking will defrag your mind of propaganda-ridden viruses induced by mass media news programming. No BS here, just the facts.
And now we present to you America's quintessential iconoclastic anomaly. Wow. In talk radio, your host, Joe Cristiano.
Welcome, everyone, to Liberty Talk Radio, America's libertarian voice, broadcasting from our studio in Tulsa, Oklahoma, to around the world. I'm your host, Joe Cristiano. This is your antidote to popular talk radio. Folks, sorry for just a mad rush for me to get ready these days because I'm so unaccustomed to broadcasting. I've been doing this since, I think, 2003, back in the good old days, and I started on Blog Talk Radio. I was forced to do that, and then I started, and I actually got a job over at the radio station doing part-time work. I didn't need enough for the money. I just did it for fun, and so I've been doing it ever since. But I've been away from the microphone for the past, I'd say, 2-3 months, and I'm really struggling with myself as to why I'm staying away, because I really love to do this program. And I suspect the reason why you haven't heard from me before now, and so sporadically, is because there are so many people online actually broadcasting from their cars, from their garage, wherever it is, and they do a very, very good job. By the way, I'm not picking on anyone, or downing anyone or anything like that. I think they do an excellent job, and they make some excellent points. And so, together with all of that, and me doing it for so many years, and I guess the room being so crowded with, there seems to be more people broadcasting than there are listening these days, that I've sort of fell out of the stream of things. And I do apologize for that, because I do get calls, and I do actually meet people, even in my own town, that say, "Where have you been? We miss you," type thing. So at the last time when I heard that, I felt kind of, I lost my, Hello? Okay, there you are. Okay, I lost my microphone for a second, and I'm losing it again. Let's see. Testing, are you there? Hello? Okay, I think we're back, but we're not working very well today, and I guess we're a little sick. Anyway, what I wanted to talk about today is the Black Lives Matter specifically, but generally where we're going as a country. The term Black Lives Matter actually rubs me the wrong way. I don't like to refer to people by color, I can see people being called African Americans, for example, because that's where they come from. I'm an Italian American because my father was born and raised in Italy, before World War II. And so I use that term because it's common, but I don't like using it. But let's go on with that. There is a problem that is not really being addressed, and I'm really disappointed in all of the people who are discussing this subject, and it's about everybody these days, and why they're not tackling the core problem. And now, I think that many people may seem to believe that I'm not qualified to talk on this subject because, man, I'm a white guy, living in a relatively white neighborhood. I have black neighbors here. In fact, the friendliest guy in the whole neighborhood is a black guy who goes across the street. He's a great guy, But I'm just saying that, people say, well, I don't know because, you haven't lived, in these neighborhoods. How could you possibly have the audacity to discuss, street life, for the black people? Well, folks, I got a surprise for you. I was born and raised in East Harlem. I'm a street kid from East Harlem. I sang doo-wop in the 50s. Doo-wop in the 50s. I will tell you how old I am because you won't believe how old I am. I'm much older than you think I am. All right? And in fact, I was the very first in New York, and this is where doo-wop really started. New York was very big. If you came from New York, you had a head start on everyone. I had the very first singing group, called the Tempers, by the way. First singing group. There were just 4 of us, and the lead was a black guy. I mean, that was so unheard of at the time. It was like people couldn't believe that you had actually had a black guy in a white singing group. Now, I want to go further. The lead was Freddie, and he was a black guy. Tremendous voice. You know, I don't know where he is these days. I wish I can contact him. It's been so long. It's been 60 years ago, you know. Anyway, our second tenor was Carlos. Great singer. So here I am. I got a fully integrated singing group in a time when that was absolutely unheard of and discouraged, you know. Blacks had their group, Puerto Ricans had their groups, you know, and the European Americans had their groups. And we had a lot of fun. We appreciated each other. We would go to the beach, Orchard Beach, you know, and we used to sit in Section 13 where all the teenagers hung out, and we sing songs, and boy, did we had girls lined up listening to us. We loved it. It was a great time. Anyway, I'll get away from that. So my point is that, you know, people say, well, Joe, you know, you're prejudiced, you know, you're an old white guy, what do you know? No, I'm a street kid from Harlem, and I lived in the East Bronx and hung around in 2 places, you know, 2 places where there was a lot of action, and that was Prospect Avenue and Prospect and can't think of any minute street that just fell out of my head. Anyway, Prospect Avenue and Simpson Streets. Prospect Avenue, Simpson Street. In fact, there was a movie a few years ago. There was a book, and I read it. It's called Fort Apache, the Bronx. And that's where I used to hang out. And it was a great book. Then they came out with a movie, you know, with all famous movie stars in it, and it had nothing to do with the book. It was just a love story. It was garbage, you know, and I was really disappointed in that. So I'm just saying that I'm not coming from a white neighborhood, pure white, where, you know, we didn't see a black person, and if we saw a black person, just put that away, you know, put that away. Now, I'll be honest with you now, my father's of the old school. He came from the old country, you know. When he found out that my singing group had a black guy, he had a fit. I have to admit, I was really upset with him, you know, because, you know, in fact, we sang to my father on his birthday. We got together, we got our suits, you know, our shirts on or whatever, and we went up to him, we sang, you know, songs to him and stuff like that, and he froze because he saw a Puerto Rican and a black guy, you know, in my group. He couldn't believe it, you know. Anyway, I felt badly for him because, I mean, he's from the old school, and whatever, you know, and I really felt badly because we wanted to really do something nice for him, and it didn't turn out very well. And that's a personal story. I'm sorry. I'm going off on a tangent. But my point being is that I am not someone who knows about the black culture, the streets of the black neighborhoods, the projects and whatever, because I read it in a book. No, I lived there, you know. And in fact, I had a job, I shouldn't admit this, collecting money for a finance company, you know. And I hung around bad neighborhoods late at night. In fact, it is surprising that I actually lived through it. And the reason why I got out of it is because I lost my touch one day. I went to go collect some money, and it was in a really bad. This neighborhood, no one went in. White, black, green, or otherwise, you didn't guard. I went into it. I had no fear at all, you know. Went to the 3rd floor, guy didn't have money, came back, and the whole stoop, as they call it, you know, where the steps were filled with a whole gang of black guys there. I was the only white guy there, you know. This was in the South Bronx. Really a bad neighborhood, tough neighborhood, you know. Anyway, I'm walking down, and one guy looked at me in a certain way, and he knew I was a phony, that I wasn't this tough guy, you know. And he was right. I wasn't this tough guy. I was faking it. And as soon as we made eye contact, I knew he knew what I knew. And I ran to my car. They all left the stoop, literally jumped on my car, and I took off, went back, quit my job. So I want you to know that I've been on both sides of the fence. I've had good friends. I worked for the finance company I worked for I worked with a black guy, Hugh Snow. And of course I never called him Hugh Snow, and we were best of friends. We went out together. His wife was wonderful. He was a sharp guy. He really was good. He got big promotions, and he deserved it. Way ahead of me. He deserved it. He was really, really good, and I loved the guy. I used to call him Hugh Slush. I said, you're a black guy, you can't be called Snow, it's white. I got to call you Slush. And he'd laugh over it. We'd have a good time. Because I had a lot of respect, tremendous respect for all nationalities. I never hung up like, oh, you're so-and-so, that means you're this and that. I never believed in that. And that's why I'm having this program today. Because I come from a neighborhood that was multicultural. Everyone, they were Puerto Ricans, they were blacks, they were Greeks, they were Italians, The 3 blocks down was the Jewish neighborhood. 3 blocks away, 2-minute walk, the Jewish neighborhood. And so, I was brought up multicultural. And sometimes some of the worst fights and some of the killings that went on, and killings did go on, by the way, in my neighborhood. People sort of, they never said that. He said, well, he's not around anymore, And everyone knew, even the cops, the cops knew exactly who did what and everything like that. I never did anything like that. Let me tell you, I never did anything like that. But, I didn't live in this beautiful neighborhood where everything was beautiful and we went to church on Sunday. It was not that neighborhood at all, Anyway, but I really loved that place. I loved it, I really loved Harlem, and I talk about it all the time, and I should keep my mouth shut. But here's the problem. We have people talking about black culture. Now, I think that's a mistake. I said, I don't think we should identify people by the color of their skin. I know guys that are really dark. I mean, darker than me, and as dark as, darker than me, but, and they're African Americans, right? And they have lighter skin than some others. How do you can't call people by the color of their skin. Some people have very light skin, some people have dark skin. Some white people have skin that's darker than people who are African Americans, or black, as we call them, blacks, which I hate the expression. So it's a very convoluted identification process, which I hate, by the way. I just had to mention that. But here's my point. Recently we had, what was that guy's name? George Floyd, Now, George Floyd was a bad dude. He was a tough dude. He was involved in a lot of bad stuff. That doesn't mean that the police officer could step on his face and whatever and block his breathing tubes or whatever happened and killed him. No, I'm not going there at all. I'm saying that, let's not make make this person a saint, because of the wrongdoing of a policeman. All right. Now, I'm not saying the policeman was right. No, he was wrong in what he did. And if they find out that he didn't follow proper procedure and he did hold his foot down on the guy died because he couldn't breathe, he should get life imprisonment, the chair, or whatever it is. But you have to understand that when they say Black Lives Matter, the people, the group who should care the most about black people are who? The black people, who appears, at least from my perspective, appears to care the least about the status of black people. From my perspective, black people, because they don't improve their neighborhoods. I saw a program on TV, in fact, you can still see them, and this guy does studies on different cities in the United States. And he constantly travels. And he's got, I guess even has a helicopter and all this other stuff. And what they do is they have things like, which are the most crowded cities in the United States? And they have the 10 most crowded cities, Which cities have the worst sewer department, and all these categories, a million categories, And recently, one of the more recent ones I saw, he said, here are the 10 worst cities in the United States. Now, where I'm living now is in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And here's the interesting thing. So, of course, he started with, the 10th worst place, and I think that was someplace in California. And then there was Detroit, there was a place in Cleveland, there was, of course, my old city, my old hunting ground, was New York City, East Harlem, places like that. But the 4th most dangerous city in the United States was North Tulsa. I about flipped my lid. I said, Tulsa? It's a nice town. This is heaven compared to where I lived, and where I lived and grew up, and but I don't go to the north part of town very rarely. There's no reason to go up there. There's no commerce up there. It's just houses. That's all. And I don't go. Not that I don't go there. I don't go to the West Tulsa. I don't go to East Tulsa. There's no reason to. Unless there's a store or something, or I'm going to the drag strip and I drive through it or something like that. So I don't go there. But for Tulsa, North Tulsa, 41st Street North, to come out number 4 in all the cities in the United States as the most dangerous, 4th most dangerous, just absolutely knocked me off my feet. So my question to you, and to everyone else, and to everyone in the North Side, if you should be listening, is it why the North Side is primarily African American? Probably 90%. I don't know what it is, but it's primarily 90%. Why then don't the African Americans care? If the north side of town is African American and crime is rampant. In fact, I drove through there once because I was doing a marketing survey for my wife's business. And there's 2 things I noticed about the north side. Just 2 things. One, there was only one bank, and it was on the borderline of North Tulsa and South Tulsa. It was like half a mile in, which, by the way, closed shortly after I noticed it was open, by the way. It closed. And there were no grocery stores, large grocery stores. And there were no large anything stores. And I said, geez, how come? I said, yeah, there's no stores here. There's just people, houses, it's some nice houses, usually smaller houses. Not, as you imagine in an older African-American, you're not going to find mansions and stuff like that. Although you found some really nice houses too. But it was devoid of all commerce. And I thought to myself, geez. So I asked a friend of mine who's a policeman, and I said, hey, I told him what I did. And I said, how come there are no banks? He says, oh, they get robbed. I said, come on, you're putting me on. I said, there's no banks because they get robbed? All banks get robbed. He says, oh, no. He says, no, side, they get robbed all the time. He said, we have banks there. He says, they close. They close. They try, they close. They try, they close all the time. I said, well, how come there's no big supermarkets? He says, because they rob they steal the food. And don't tell me I'm not talking negatively about the black community. I'm just giving you a fact. Now, my point being is that if Black Lives Matter, and it does, believe me, it does. I've always had black friends. I've always enjoyed them. And I love the black community. And I'm not anti anything. Why isn't the black community, why don't they care about the black community? Why aren't they so strict in that if a young girl wants to go out with a guy and they're afraid that if she goes out with this guy, he may get her pregnant, that she doesn't go? But it seems that there's no principles. When I lived in Italian Harlem, it was primarily Italian, although Puerto Ricans, blacks, there was everybody there. But it was considered, Italian Harlem, You wanted to go out with a girl. Hey, let me tell you something. You went to the house. You spoke with the father. You sat down. If he didn't like your face, he didn't like anything about you, you got out. And his daughter never saw you again. Period. And if she did, oh boy, were you in for a big surprise. You would get really hurt. And so there was a system, there was a code of everything that went on in our community. It wasn't believe me, it wasn't a high-end community. It was very low. The woman next door at 2409 First Avenue, she was on the second floor, and she was right next door to me. Her window was just a couple windows down from me, from where I lived. And when I used to come out in the summertime to go play, that's when I was young, she'd go out and say, Joey. She'll Joey. And I go, yeah, I've got her name, And she said, what time is it? Could you imagine that? A woman was so poor, she didn't even have a clock. And believe me, I'm not making this up. I can hear her voice as clearly today as it did 65 years ago. Joey, what time is it? Everyone took care of one another. And so when we see this big hullabaloo about a guy who apparently, now I don't know him, I have nothing against him or anything, but apparently he's got a record, he's kind of a mean guy, he's someone you really did not want to meet, from what I read. I'm not casting any opinion or anything. I'm just saying, and these are articles written by black people, not white, black people that say this dude was bad, And so I'm assuming that now if it was just white people, I say, maybe they're a little prejudiced and all this. No, it's the black people. Those black people who want to see the black community rise out of the doldrums that it's in. They don't want to see people like this. They want the community to correct the situation. They don't want the cops to correct it. They want the community to correct it. But unfortunately, the problem is the government. The government comes in and says, oh, don't worry, if you have children, we'll give you an apartment and we'll pay for it. We'll give you food stamps so you can eat. We'll give you daycare free because da-da-da-da-da-da-da, So girls, they get pregnant, they have kids, and they don't have a husband and this and that. And then when these kids grow up, get a little older, they hang around the streets, unfortunately they're not very well disciplined. They don't have a father home. Said, hey, come over here, Joe, I got something for you. My father said, yeah, I got something for you, Giuseppe, come over here. Yeah, what is it? Pow, like that, he has something for me. God forbid I did something like that, Well, there's no discipline. And it's difficult to have discipline when you have a family which doesn't include a husband and a wife, and one goes to work while the other one stays home, takes care of the children, during the early years. Of course, you can't go working and leave the kids alone. That which I disagree with 100%. But we don't have that today. And when people say Black Lives Matter, what the black community has to do and say, yes, black lives do matter. And we have to take that seriously. Because don't expect that Italian, Joe Cristiano, to do anything about it. I mean, the only thing he can do is be friendly and helpful. But he can't do it for us. He is not one of us. Just like if the Italians had a problem, I'd say, hey, wait a minute, where are the African Americans helping me out? No, it's your community that needs to help each other out. There needs to be a code of ethics, and it needs to be strict. And I know there are lots of black people out there, black, ministers and men who work in schools that help children in school that are not part of the school system, that try to teach them a trade and whatever. There's plenty of people out there, and I admire those people. Those are the people that you need. So Black Lives Matter is not a matter for the President of the United States. It's not something that the Congress or the Senate should do. It's not something that the state legislature should do. It's not something that the governor should do. No one like that. It should be the family. And unfortunately, the big problem with most of the problems that we have today is because of a breakup of the nuclear family. Now, I'm not just picking on the black community, because the white community has the same problem, maybe to a slightly lesser extent. Maybe. I'm an expert in that field. But the black community should take hold and say, we are doing everything wrong. We need to fix this up. We really need to fix this. We have everyone outside, everyone wants to help, but they can't do it for us. We must do it. So instead of rioting in the street because a cop killed, and I'm not giving the cop any credit whatsoever, saying he should have killed him. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying he shouldn't have done that. He should have just tied his hands behind his back to make sure he couldn't get away, and if he created a crime or whatever, and then respectfully put him in the car and take him off to jail, and then he should have a regular trial, just like anybody else, like me, you, and everybody else. But it shouldn't be the Congress of the United States. It shouldn't be rioting in the street that makes it happen. Because if it's rioting in the streets and they get their way, what message does that leave? Well, if you want your own way, man, go to the streets, burn a few houses down. That's the way we get things done around here. So what they're doing is they're lowering the black community, the African American community, are lowering themselves by supporting Black Lives Matter. Not that Black lives don't matter. They matter the same way as European Americans, Japanese Americans, Chinese Americans. Everyone's life is equal. Everyone is equal. And if they only could get together, get some hub together, and I tell you, I would almost participate in that. They get people together to say, we need people to help us create this community. And it may need people from even outside our community. I don't know how this is done. But they need to do that. They need to be the pillar of their community. But not when something like this happens, even if the cop was 100% wrong, and I think he was, by the way, from what I've seen. Don't come down to Central Tulsa, North Tulsa, and West Tulsa and bomb the place out and break windows and put people out of business. I mean, but look at the logic. If people feel somewhat like I do, like the black community has a problem, they shouldn't come over here and create a problem here. That's not going to say, well, geez, that solved that problem. Now that they've destroyed our way of living, now we all can work together. No, it's not going to work that way. There's going to be a lot of anger and animosity. What they should do is build a community that's not as good as the white community, as the Asian community, but better. And they can do it. And it really bothers me because, I'm a street kid. I lived amongst the Puerto Ricans, I lived with the black guys, I sang with them. In fact, one time I sang with a group in Harlem, and it was Northern Manhattan, Harlem, yeah. And it was 1 o'clock in the morning, and because I was a singer, I saved my life. It's a great story, but I won't tell it now, it's too long. Anyway, but can't they see that what they are doing is they are making things worse than where they are now? Oh, they're going to get the government involved. Oh, yeah, screw the government. The government is corrupt. So you're going to get it's like saying, oh, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to get the mafia, to make sure everyone's in line. Well, does that mean we fixed the problem? No, we got the mafia involved. Well, our government and the mafia, no difference. The only difference is our government's much bigger, has a lot more money. But they do the same thing. And you say, well, no, the mafia kill people. Oh, yeah? We don't? we don't have people in Afghanistan, and thank God, because if we didn't have soldiers in Afghanistan killing people, I don't know what would happen to the United States. So don't give me that. Don't give me that at all. So we really need to think. We need to support one another. Everybody and everything that they do should reflect a matter of pride, of respect, of wanting to be part of the community, to be cohesive. All of these things, every one of us, and I'm not just picking on the black community, I don't care what community, I got gray, blue, red, Chinese, Japanese, Mongolian, I don't care. You have no idea how I don't care about that stuff. Now, my father was big because he's from the old country. The Italians are the best in the world. Yeah, that, sure, yeah, we understand that. But you have to expect that from people who come from war-torn Europe, But today, there's no need for that. And do you think that the black community, the African American community, has raised the status of themselves in this environment as a result of what they're doing? Or are they lowering it even more? Now, if it's even more, lowering even more, then they are in worse shape than they were before. Now what do? Burn down the whole city? I mean, I don't know. My problem is I'm a businessman. If I do something, I have to see what the next step is. All right, we're going to do this. All right, when we do this, it sounds good. Then what? I always ask, all right, then what? They go, oh, here it goes again. Then what? Yeah, I said, that's right. Then what? And if you don't have an answer to the then what, we don't do it. And I have to be at least somewhat satisfied in that I've generally been a successful business person. And I've been fair to everyone, and I treat absolutely everyone the same. And if I don't have enough money, I pay them, and I do without. And this is the way everyone should think. But it seems like it's all me, and mine. And someone owes me something. No one owes you a damn thing. I don't owe you a damn thing. You don't owe me a damn thing. But we need to respect one another and be available in the event that it's needed. That my help is needed for you, I should be available. Now, don't expect me to go driving around the streets of a poor neighborhood saying, who needs help? Who needs help? Don't get me wrong. Because you know what would happen if a white guy went in the wrong neighborhood late at night. He's not coming home. Let's face it. And it's not that I didn't know. I lived in those neighborhoods. So I'm not saying, I lived in an ivory tower, and now everything's fine, and these people are poor, the poor bastards, No. I'm not talking about that. So please, when you hear this, and it says an election is coming up now, and I think this election is going to be horrible. I don't think we have a choice. If, in fact, you have an opportunity to write someone's name in that you think is qualified, do it. Don't vote Republican, Democrat. They're not worth the damn, neither one of them. You know, if there's a libertarian and a real libertarian, and I'm a real libertarian, you know, that's the person you should vote for. But unfortunately, you, me, and 20 other people probably make up, all the votes, and it won't go anywhere. But whatever you do, don't vote for someone just because they're on the ticket, and if you didn't vote for them, you wouldn't be voting, and it's your right to vote, your obligation to vote, so I'll vote for Adolf Hitler because he was the only one on the ticket. No, you can't do that. That's what we've been doing. Now, we haven't had Adolf Hitlers, but we've had some really bad, crappy people in office, unfortunately. But think about yourself, think about your children, think about your family, think about your neighborhood, think about your friends. And the best you can do is be the best of yourself. Be you. Be the best you can be. And then use that betterment to improve your the environment around you, including your friends and your businesses and your acquaintances and whatever. And after a while, if everyone does that, people say, wow, what a neighborhood. That's really neat. I want to live there. These people are great. And that's what you should strive for. Anyway, I don't think I talked about really all the things I wanted to talk about. I just went on a rant. And I apologize if I broke your eardrums, And I truly hope that you appreciate what I'm saying and you don't misinterpret what I'm saying. Because you may say, oh, he's anti-this, anti... I'm not anti-anything. But I really want you to get away from this Republican versus Democrat and this guy did this and he said that and she said... Please. They're all... As far as I'm concerned, most of our politicians aren't worth anything. I tell you, I listen to none of them because it's all prefabricated and manufactured, for an interest so that they can capture the interest of a certain group so they can vote for them. And then when they get into office, they get millions of dollars that they get under the table, screw you, they get their way and they make believe that somehow you won also, when it just cost you part of your life again. Okay, with that, I'd like to say I want to thank you very much for listening to Liberty Talk Radio. By the way, this evening, it is now, almost 10 after 3 here in Central Time, and I'm going to have Andy Sutton tonight. I think it's 7 o'clock. Andy Sutton, he's an economist, and he's going to talk tonight. So hopefully, if I can set up the program properly, because I don't have my tech guy here today, and if we can set it up, listen to us on same place, same channel, same everything, 7 o'clock tonight. I think 7 o'clock tonight, okay? And we have Andy Sutton, and he is terrific, okay? Thank you so much for listening in, and stay well. Stay tuned. Let's see if I can turn this thing off properly. Here we go.